Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
Between you and me, finding genuine marketing renegades for this show is a lot harder than you might think. I attended a conference recently, and frankly, maybe 2 of the 20 senior marketers that I met or saw speak had something fresh to say and could back it up with the actions they had taken. The good news for you is that one of those folks is on the show today, and he's the CMO of Boxed, a fast-growing e-commerce startup. And what struck me about his presentation was his raw honesty, his command of both the art and science of marketing, and how much the guy swore on stage. And in fact, when I approached Jackson Jeyanayagam about being on the show, his first question was, "Can I swear?" So Jackson, welcome to the show, and feel free to swear to your heart's content.
Thank you, Drew. And I have to say, as soon as you said yes, I knew this was the right opportunity for us to do this together. So thank you for having me.
So before you joined Box.com, you were at Chipotle, which was right in the middle of what must have been, an unimaginable nightmare from a PR standpoint and a marketing standpoint. Looking back on that, we're going to talk about Box, but looking back on that, because now you've had a little distance, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you took away from that experience?
Yeah, I don't know if there's enough time on your podcast for me to go over all that. I'm sure you even have thoughts as a customer and a consumer, right? I would say if there was one, and it's so much easier to say it after the fact, as you know, right? And we've talked about transparency is critical, but the hindsight of how transparent we should have been and need to be is much more obvious now, a year and a half later. So I think we could have been more transparent in the moment, even with the things we didn't know that was happening.
I remember well early in my career the Tylenol crisis and what happened there. And for those of you who may not have been born when that happened, several people were actually poisoned by some bottles of Tylenol. And that became the case for all cases in terms of how to handle a crisis. And one of the things that they did that I thought was several things they did. One is they immediately took all this product off the shelf. Immediately. They found out what the problem was. They reported every single day. The CEO was up front and center of it. And what's funny about that, by the way, is that Johnson & Johnson forgot some of that later on. But nonetheless, the folks at McNeil Lab, who was Tylenol, got in front of it. And then when they went back to market, and this was the key, they went back to market with Triple Seal. And so that Triple Seal, it said, we're not only protecting it once, but we're doing it 3 times so that you can trust our product. And ultimately, brands are about trust. That's really it.
One thing I'll add too is I think that's a great example. I also think, and we've all been there, we've heard panels, we've heard discussions of other people speaking about major crisis and what the brand should have done, right? We all know about the United thing. Yeah. And I'll just say being in one, I've been in a couple. One was obviously much more significant. The other one was a T-Mobile, the Paris Hilton hack of her sidekick. It's so much easier for people outside to say, United should have done that. But if you really break down what happened in the moment, it's not that easy. Yes, there are definitely things Chipotle, United, Pepsi, all those other brands could have done. But when things are happening, unfolding, it's much more difficult in the moment to say, we should be doing this because everything has a domino effect. And I think that's something I always like to remind people too. Until you've been there, it's much harder, as you know, Drew, to actually make that decision in the moment.
Let's switch gears a little bit. You've worked on a lot of big brands over the years like P&G, Nestle, and 3M, and brands that now must have seen like they had infinite resources from a marketing standpoint. And you worked also both on the client side and the agency side. So I'm curious which of these experiences, if any, really prepared you for the craziness that you have today in startup land?
I would say working on the big brand side definitely prepares you in terms of how to plan, long-term vision planning, strategy, the things that you're just so close to the business and so close to key decision makers. Chipotle, I just had exposure that I never would have had on the agency side. But at the end of the day, Drew, I definitely think agency side did so, especially New York agency. And what I mean by that is, as you know, New York agency life is so fast paced. You're going 100 miles an hour. You're working across 10 different verticals. You're just doing so much that you just have to keep up. And the people around you are kind of making you stay competitive, making you stay in front of things and ahead of things. And I think agency life in New York is unlike any other thing that I've experienced until startup.
But now you're focused on one brand. And how is that's a big difference. And how do you like that as in comparing the two experiences?
At this stage of my life, after doing agency for about 15 plus years and having a 2-year-old baby, that's also a little difficult when you're managing agency travel, going on the road every other week for a pitch or for a presentation. I love the idea of just getting deep with the brand. I think there's a lot of power and value in that. But honestly, I was prepared to be able to do this because I draw on my experiences working with Nike or Old Spice or Nestle or Starbucks. All those experiences have been able to empower me to make the right decisions, I think, and to hopefully drive Box forward into the next 2 to 3 years. So, I love being brand side because I can go that deep and think long term with one specific goal in mind.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
Can I say something controversial?
Please.
So, Drew, I'll just throw out my first controversial thing. I won't swear yet. I talked to a lot of students, coming out, and because I love talking to students, I've always thought that I wish I had more people to talk to when I was coming out, trying to figure out what to do. And we're seeing the shift in agency versus brand world. I think 15 years ago, the dream job was to be the next Don Draper and go to a big ad agency or a small ad agency and make that impact. I think there's still a lot of love for that. I think now you're seeing a lot more people wanting to go to the startup world or going to a smaller brand. But I will say, starting an agency life is an amazing experience. I personally think the ultimate goal, though, is to take all that experience and then end up on the brand side, whether it's a startup, whether it's a small company, could be B2B or B2C, and then use that to build that brand organization. Unless you end up starting your own agency or running an agency, I think that's a different kind of role and amazing responsibility. I just think ultimately, it feels like it's going to college to learn all these things. I don't want to stay in college forever. Right. I want to get my degree, maybe a second degree, and now I want to put it towards something. And to me, that's where the brand side ends up being a really fulfilling experience.
I would add to that, and when kids ask me, I get a lot of calls from Duke students because I went there, and they ask, so if you had to start again, where would you go? And the answer to me is easy. I'd head out to Silicon Valley right away because I do think they're winning the talent war. Yep. I think that's what everybody competes with Google and Apple and Facebook for talent, and agencies, I think, lost their edge on that front and their appeal, which is sad, but we're not going to talk about sadness here. We're going to go back to the job. So when you first took a job back in November of 2016, you told Ad Age that you didn't plan on coming in and changing everything, intending instead to listen, learn, and look at the numbers and see what was working and what isn't. So first, I admire that approach. I wonder how many months you stuck with that. But so let's just talk about what you saw that was working.
Yeah, I think I was lucky, Drew. I came into something that the guys here who built this had done all the hard work. I kind of feel like I had the easier part of the job. I came in and they had gifted me something that was a beautiful vision with a really values-driven leadership team and a CEO. And I was just tasked with taking it to the next level, building the brand while acquiring customers efficiently, high-quality customers efficiently, and improving loyalty, right? Those are my 3 big priorities. And what I found was they already have and had and continue to have a loyal customer base. We already have people that love us, excuse me, not only because of the products and the services, but also because of our founder and leader. What we didn't have was mass exposure. We were under the radar. People didn't know us in California. Even in New York, New Jersey, where we're based, I'm sure you have friends you talk to. Right. Yeah. Like, what's Boxed?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And as soon as you tell them what it is, oh, that's a no-brainer. I should fucking, of course, sign up for it. My bad. I said the F word. But that's what we want. We want that thing. People oh man, obviously that's a great solution. So for me, it was really just getting that mass awareness that the brand deserves based on the values, the corporate ethos, the wonderful vision we have, the customer experience, and of course, the products and services that we sell.
So I think that's a perfect place to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk, how do you build reach when you're a small company?
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew. Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from. Top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
All right, we're back, and with Jackson J, CMO of Boxed.com. And it's really an interesting e-commerce startup, and it's based right here in New York City, right? Mm-hmm. And so let's start with your overall strategy. We talked a little bit about reach. That's not a strategy. That's an objective. And acquisition, which of course is another objective. Let's just sort of focus in a second and talk about the strategy and if you did any tweaks to it as you were, as you came on board.
Yeah, so one of the first things I knew was really critical for our success was having the right people in the right places, right? So within the current team and bringing in some external talent to support what was already being built. So one of the first things I did was bring buying and creative in-house. So we still rely on agencies and we still use them for sure. We have a couple great agencies, but I wanted that strategy from a media buying standpoint and from a creative standpoint to be tied at the hip with each other and come from the internal standpoint.
This is always a big battle, and you've been both agency side and client side. The decision to bring it in-house, has pros and cons. Tell me the why, and, I suspect because you've been an agency person, this was a lot easier for you than perhaps someone else. But why was it so important? I get bringing media in. It's your lifeblood when you're an e-commerce company. You're a direct acquisition company. But why bring the creative in-house?
I wanted my creative, really, to be as blunt as possible. I wanted my creative lead and my leadership to live and bleed the brand. And when you're agency side, even if you're agency of record and you're working on, insert Colgate or you're working on Nike all day, every day, until you have a piece of the pie, you have equity in it, like you're living in the halls, it is hard to really understand the brand, the voice, the tone, and constantly come up with great creative that really speaks to it. And when we're talking about building the brand, it's even more important because you're starting from scratch. So I wanted my creative director to be here all day, every day, sleep here if he had to. And I intentionally went and got a creative director that was at Vice, who was on my agency side when I was at Chipotle at Carrot. And he came from like Digitas, and I think he worked at Saatchi. So he had the traditional agency experience, but I just needed that here. I wanted my Don Draper in here.
So you bring the creative in, you bring the media in. From a overall creative idea, campaign standpoint, what is the Box brand about? Maybe you could describe it in just the fewest possible words.
I have 2 words for you, Drew. Delivering joy.
And I remember you talking about delivering joy at your presentation, and the first thing I thought about is Zappos and delivering wow. Yep. And so, is there a difference between delivering wow and delivering joy?
I think so. I think what Zappos did is actually, first off, amazing, right? Especially as it relates to customer service. I think they reinvented what customer service should be like in retail, not just e-commerce. I think we look at it as a little bit more, I don't want to say fluffy because it's more than that, but it's a little bit more nuanced. So delivering joy is obviously the product experience, right? First and foremost, if the product is shit, marketing is shit, right? It doesn't matter. No matter how great I think I am or how great my agencies are, it won't matter. But after that, it's about delivering joy through every experience. When you open the box, you see a cartoon face of Che, our founder, with a quote on it. When you see a handwritten note and a selfie of your box inside of it. When you get that delivery within a day and you didn't pay for shipping. When you get a creativity kit where you get crayons and markers and instructions on how to make your box into a castle to celebrate Beauty and the Beast. So you can do that with your kid. Like, we do that and we offer that for free. So it's those little touches that for us is all about delivering joy, not only from your products are there and you paid a good price for it, but all those other touch points that is a little bit more nuanced to us specifically.
There were so many cool ideas that you got there, and I immediately thought, I remember when our kids were little, the boxes would arrive around the holidays, and they had no interest in the presents. It was just like, get into the boxes and throw what my father calls the angel farts, the little styrofoam things around, and that to them was heaven. So what a great idea of box castles. It's brilliant. And part of this is you're really delivering generic products to people for the most part. I mean, it isn't about what's in the box from what they paid for, right?
Yes and no. I mean, definitely there's some products that you can get anywhere. And I think that's what you're saying. Absolutely. Like, you can get Doritos anywhere. Why get it from us? I think one thing is we hope that you align with our vision as a brand. You know, as Drew, I know you believe in this as well. Brands that have a higher purpose tend to resonate with our customers more so than brands that don't, right? So if all things are being equal, or maybe even a little more expensive, you believe in our vision, our purpose, and what we're trying to do for our employees and community. But I think the other piece to that is we do try to have a curated selection of products. So you'll never come into Boxed or come onto Boxed or download Boxed and have the same amount of products you'll have at Costco. We just won't have that variety of selection. You will have a big selection, and it'll be very curated to a certain kind of audience, right? So we have a lot of young families, people who live in the big cities. We also have a lot of big families that live in the South and the Midwest. But we know that our audience is a little bit more progressive in the way they shop. They have certain needs, so we try to curate the products for them so we have the right assortment by the right suppliers. And we also have a private brand, which is actually a bigger trend right now happening with e-commerce, where we have this thing called Prince and Spring, which is our Kirkland R365, that we have this loyal customer base. When they come online, they go right to Prince and Spring products, and we see it all the time in social media and customer service inquiries, and they say, when can you do other things with Prince and Spring?
When, so I imagine that Delivering Joy was here as part of the brand before you got here?
It was, yes.
Okay. And so what have been some of the things that you've sort of focused on personally to help the brand grow beyond where it was when you got here?
Yeah, so I think it's one, bringing media in-house allowed me to get closer to our acquisition efforts so we could start focusing on finding the high-value customers. And we did that in a few ways. One, we did a pretty big segmentation with Kantar Group. It's actually just finalizing right now, where we can better understand our current customers and the potential opportunity with new consumers, right? So something that a lot of big brands have done for decades, right? Customer research segmentation. We were lucky enough that we have first-party data. We know a lot about our customers, but we hadn't bubbled that up into themes and thematics around who are our 4 or 5 ideal customers based on lots of different factors. So we implemented that, did that, and then started applying that to our acquisition efforts so we can be more focused and more specific on who and where we spend money to go acquire. So the idea that, okay, we're just dropping a value-driven promo at 15% off, and we're just targeting people we think would like Box, that's great, but you don't really know a lot about them, and they're really probably going to come in on the deal, and then the next time they shop, they're looking for whoever has the best promo code, right? What we want to do is let's attract you in with a great promo code, but if we know a little bit more about you, we know what drives you, and we can lead with something that's more important to you around a specific product or value prop versus me or someone else, and that's where I really want to focus is data to drive better decisions on how we target and acquire new customers.
So we're getting could go into a full sort of cognitive behavioral marketing program. Let's talk a little bit about the tech stack that you need to be able to deliver that.
Yeah, so right now we have a couple of tools in place, a platform called Resonate, and we have our CRM platform, Zendesk, and we have an ESP and SailThrough, and all those work together. We integrate them together along with Domo to visualize the data so we can be smarter about not only our customers and what they're doing, but how that bubbles up to a broader segment. Is someone a discoverer? Do they like to discover new products? Is someone a value seeker? Is someone a real homebody? They're really more focused on, I just don't want to go to the store. I just want that stuff to come to my door, and I don't even want to log on. Just deliver that to my door because you know all my behaviors, you know when I'm going to run out of something, right? So I think the data and the tools we have in place have helped us be better and smarter about how we can re-engage our current customers. And as we think about launching in the next 6 to 8 months, our brand building efforts really starting to go into market with above the line, sponsorship, TV. We think about DMP and DSPs and what we need to bring in to the tool set to be smarter and also more targeted with how we go engage with customers.
You started to talk about your segments, discover, value seekers. How many do you have? And, how helpful are those really?
Yeah, so Drew, you're going to get the sneak peek. I don't think I've even launched this with our board or with even the entire organization. So I can't give you everything. And those aren't the names. I kind of, we're finalizing names, but they're going to be really cool names.
Good.
I'll tell you one of them as a sneak peek. So you get to break it here. Okay. Adulting. Hashtag adulting.
Hashtag adulting. Okay, I have to know what that is. But you know what? I'm gonna tease you all, and I'm gonna take a quick break because I need a sip of water. We're gonna end this conference. We're gonna find out what adulting is and a lot more when we get back.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
So we're back with Jackson, who is the CMO of Box.com, and he just introduced a term. I think it was #adultery.
Adulting.
I know. I'm kidding. Adulting.
That is pretty good too. Maybe
Yeah.
that'll be a second segment.
All right. So tell us about that segment and what it means to be adulting. Obviously, I have no idea.
Well, and I'm sure there's some people listening out there that are like, yes, this is my world. So as we're rolling these segments out, we want to have fun names with them. So one thing I'll say is that I tried very hard. And I think one thing you said about me, and I'm glad that really was the biggest compliment. I try not to be the traditional cliche marketer. So that means I can't have any cliche terms for our segments. And so when you hear about, modern mavens, I'm like, I've seen that thing 10 different times, and I'm sure
20 years, yeah.
20, and you're making a face. I wish they could see it. You know that face, right? That's the face I made when I heard those terms. So we wanted it to be relevant to us as a brand. We're a young brand born in the last 4 years, and to, potentially partners and obviously our consumers. So there's no convention with our segments. So one of them's #adulting. It's not even like a typical name, but it speaks to a demographic and a psychographic. And the idea is adulting really speaks to the idea that you hit a certain point in your life stage and now you're evolving. You might have just gotten married. You might have just had a kid. You might have bought a home. You might have moved away from your parents. You might have a pet. Or it might be a combination of all those, right? You could be in your mid to late 20s, you could be in your 30s or even 40s, right? It's less about the age and it's more about where you are from a life stage standpoint that speaks to some other changes in your life, including buying habits. So instead of running out of toilet paper, having that last square and being like, okay, I'm going to order max delivery, I'm going to run to the bodega and get it if you live in New York. Now you're actually thinking about, hosting a party this week. I have 2 rolls left. Let me stock up and let me get this thing delivered to me by box. And also let me get my case of wine as well. So if I was to really simplify it, it's that life stage.
That's really interesting about adulting. I'm curious, once you have that definition, how do you use it? And what does that mean in terms of media choices and creative?
This is the beauty of kind of us. We're flying the plane while we're building it. We're moving really fast as a startup. And we have a lot of goals and objectives. So one of the things we're building out now is what does that segmentation look like from a syndicated media standpoint, from a targeting standpoint? Where and how do we find them? And what are the lead things that drive them to go make a purchase, whether it's at retail or online? So with that audience, we know it's a little bit of nostalgia. It's a little bit of like, I'm missing my old life, so how do we reward them? How do we remind them that we're not making you make choices on things that you don't want to make choices on? So you love sriracha, you always love sriracha. We're just saying now you don't have to worry about wasting time every 3 weeks to get sriracha. Stock up with it and you have it for 2 months. You can spend more time hanging out with your friends or doing the things that maybe you're missing. The other thing is, hey, we're just helping you live your life in a smarter, hopefully savvier way. So now you might have a pet or you have a dog or actually you bought a home in Brooklyn and you can't really afford it. We're going to save you a good 30% on everything that you buy because you're buying in bulk and you're buying with us. So I think we try to identify those are 2 specific things that are specific to adulting. So when we reach out to them, we engage with them, the message, the emails, the social media posts that we target towards them are very specific to those scenarios versus someone else who might just be about a promo or might just be about staying at home.
Yeah, I totally get the adulting thing. I got 2 kids who are no longer kids. They would be #adulting. One of the things they would struggle with, though, frankly, is they have tiny little apartments. Uh-huh. One of the things I think you have to go into the business of is shelves as well, extra shelving, right, so that they have space for the stuff that you're selling.
Yeah, that we actually talk about how do we make this relevant to San Francisco and New Yorkers, who are 2 of our best markets, right? We do really well here. We even joked around kind of another sneak peek of some things we launched. We talk about city bulk. So there's bulk. If you live in the Midwest, live in the South, even Northwest, right? I lived in Portland, Seattle. You just have more space. All my friends have houses or big apartments, right? Here in New York, we all know 700 square feet is a luxury. So what is city bulk? Maybe it's a smaller version of the big bulk. Maybe it's the certain things that we know you need, but you don't need 10 things of detergent, but you need that toilet paper, you need your sriracha, you need your wine, and you make room for that. So we play around with how do we market to city dwellers as well.
When, this is an e-commerce brand, and as a result, you've got to be focused on the numbers. How much does it cost you to acquire a customer, the right customer? So you could be inundated with data, and you could be making a lot of decisions. And I'm going to harp on this a little bit. I've seen a couple of companies that became obsessed with CPA to their detriment, because it was simply about getting someone on the top line, not worrying about on the bottom line, and they had tremendous churn as a result of that. How are you using your data to make sure that you're acquiring the right customers, and in some ways acquiring them in the right way?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's not one answer. I definitely, so I'll take a step back, and one thing Drew and I were chatting before we started was I never appreciated data the way I appreciate it now. Like, meaning I oversaw it at Chipotle, and I definitely led a lot of analytics campaigns in my agency days at Taylor, and before that with Old Spice at Citizen. But what I've realized is it's a different level of data when you're on the agency side or you're working on a brand that isn't direct to customer. When you come here to an e-commerce startup, I mean, everyone here, from the creatives to the engineers to the ops team, lives and breathes in data, and it makes your game so much better. Do you play pool, Drew?
A little bit.
I heard you're pretty good.
Yeah.
So I equate it to playing snooker, which is really difficult. Bigger table, smaller balls, it's just really hard to do that. But then you go to a bar and you play pool and you feel like you're a pro. It's just that much easier. That's what I feel like I'm dealing with now. So when I came in here, I appreciated data, but didn't realize how much data can drive decisions. So that's one thing that I learned here. The flip side, though, is sometimes data can get in your way, to your point earlier, right? So we're lucky that we have a board of investors who understand the power of building the brand and also balancing that with data. And that's why they hired me versus a performance marketer. You know, I have performance marketing experience, but I'm not a pure play performance marketer. And my thing has always been, it's a balance of heart and science, not even art. It's heart, knowing what's right from a creative standpoint, from a value standpoint, and trusting your gut, but using the data to get you there, but also knowing when to discount the data, even though it says 25% of people will like this better than 22%. I know that one's on the 22% side, that's the better creative. That's the one that's more on brand. That's the thing that we need to go forward with. That's maybe not the best example, but it's that balance of the data with that heart that is critical for marketers.
You know, I've heard that a lot from CMOs of late, is that they actually have enough data, and they're potentially overwhelmed with it. So you're right. They have to occasionally step back and make sure that that they're seeing the data that matters. The other thing I was thinking about is last night I was having a conversation with a CMO who just started, and we were talking about what I thought were the two biggest problems that challenges that CMOs face in their job. Number one is data management. I mean, absolutely building a MarTech stack, the right tech stack. And you know, number two is scope creep. Is that the job just seems to be everything that the CEO almost does as well. So it's a complicated thing. But talking about the tech stack for a second, earlier we were talking about predictive analytics and these wonderful ways of making sure that the right message to your segment, so that adulting segment gets just the right offer at just the right moment. And there's a lot of companies out there like IBM and Pega who are promising to be able to do that. You guys you're not using them. What's your plan there?
You know, our founders, all of them started a gaming company before and sold to Zynga. So they have the experience. They come from tech background. They get it. We believe inherently in building things first if we can, right? And not only does that improve our inherent value as a company and what we offer, it also speaks to who we are and our DNA. So we're as much technology as we are e-commerce. So when we think about AI and predictive analytics, we have a great tech team, a great data science team who is within that tech team, an ops team that is tech driven. So everything we do, like we just automated our fulfillment center in Jersey, which got a little bit of buzz a couple of months ago, and we dedicated not to letting anyone go. We're retraining a lot of workforce on the new automation technology. And the goal there is it's the mirroring of and matching of human capital and intellectual capital along with great technology. And building it in-house allows us to not only build upon our value, but do it our way, customized for our customers and our consumers, and give ourselves a chance to constantly reiterate on that as things change, as the marketplace changes. Once you have something off the shelf, it becomes much more challenging to change with the market and with our customer needs. And our category is too competitive for us to have that.
And then there's always the interesting option that you could end up developing something that you could end up selling, which is what happened with American Advantage System, which is how DoubleClick came into being. So or license it. Yep. So that's an interesting thing. All right, we're going to do something unprecedented. We're going to do something renegade for Renegade Thinkers Unite. We're going to go to the fourth segment because we haven't even talked about box culture and some of the cool things that the CEO has done. And we have to talk about those things. So stay tuned for part 4 of this really interesting episode.
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from. Top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
Okay, we're back with part 4, and for those of you who have hung on this long, I promise you this is going to be perhaps the most interesting part of the whole thing. We talked earlier about delivering joy, and as a longtime marketer, the thing that always really freaks me out is when someone gets attached to a tagline and it's just language. And the reason I wanted to talk to Jackson was that when I saw him on stage, this was a lot more than simply a tagline. This was a commitment on a cultural level that impacted not only the product experience, but also how the company is run. So let's talk about the culture here at Boxed and some of the things that you've done to help deliver joy to employees.
Yeah, I think honestly, Drew, this is one of the things that attracted me the most to Box. When I interviewed with Che, the founder, CEO, one of the 4 founders, and my boss in the warehouse for 4 hours, 90% of the conversation was about this values-driven initiative that he has undertaken with the co-founders around what this company stands for. And 2 examples of that are once he found out that a lot of employees were struggling with personal financial issues like sending their kids to college and weddings, which are probably maybe the 2 most expensive life things that happen in your world. I mean, I think you said you have 2 daughters, so
2 kids.
2 kids?
A boy and a girl.
Okay, I don't know if they're in college yet, but you know how expensive that's are going to be.
By the way, there was a mic drop moment for my wife and I. Both of them graduated from college after years and years of private school living here in New York City. So we had a little dance. So
sure,
yeah.
Right?
But
yeah.
Totally, the dollars spent on their education is phenomenal.
And it's only skyrocketing. So one thing that Che said, as an immigrant, came here when he was 1. His family really valued education. He had the chance to go to college himself and go to law school. He wanted to take care of that for employees. So he put out his own equity, his own piece of the pie, money aside. So if you're an employee at Box and your kids are going to college, he'll pay for tuition for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Community college, MIT, Harvard, doesn't matter. So that was important to him. And then he built upon that when he heard that some people also had some big occasions like a wedding. So not everyone has a kid in college. Other people are getting married, and that's a big expense. So we pay for a big portion of your wedding. And that was a significant thing that he wanted to do for his employees.
So you shared the video of that at the conference that I met you at, and I will include a link or embed that video in the show notes page. But maybe you could talk about that because that became a bit of marketing there.
It did. It was by accident, quite honestly. I mean, I think this is what sets us apart. We're a company that's not doing it to market. It just happened to be something that it resonated with people. And I think in this current climate, people just wanted to be inspired and wanted to see something that was authentic and transparent. And that's what they saw. So Che went to the warehouse or distribution center in Jersey, found out one of the employees was getting married, was really stressed, had an ill mother, and was just struggling with some other, financial obligations, and was trying to figure out how they were going to make it all work. And that really got to Che. And he was like, I can make a difference here. I can make an impact. And if you go to Boxed, our YouTube page, I think you can find it on our Facebook page, you can see this video. I get choked up even watching it, and I've watched it 100 times. He's going through this, telling this employee and this employee's fiance that he's decided to pay for his wedding. And it is an amazing moment. It's so genuine. You see all the employees choking up. And that's where it all started. It was from one story that he found. It's a great insight. It's data, but not like tens of thousands of people research. It was an employee that really, it hit a chord with Che, and it struck a nerve. And even as I think about it, it chokes me up just hearing about it. And then he rolled out to everyone else.
Well, I have to say, excuse me, I have to
You're
say.
choked up too.
Oh, I was. Are you kidding? I was weeping at this conference, and I'm tweeting and weeping. It's called tweeping. It was terrible. Anyway, it wasn't terrible. It was fun. But my kids will tell you I'm an easy cry. But nonetheless, so I would imagine that the things like that make recruiting a lot easier.
Yeah, it does. We actually, every time Lester Holt just featured us a couple weeks ago, and then Matt Lauer the next morning on Today's Show referenced it as well. So we saw huge spikes in traffic, tons of emails, but a lot of great candidates who were just moved by what they heard. And they're talking like for everything from people who wanted to work in a distribution center to like very senior people from major companies, all household names that are like, I love it. How can I start working with you? So we do get a lot of that. And I think it speaks to, again, what people are looking for. Our Glassdoor, it's only a handful of reviews compared to the large organizations, but essentially perfect stars, which is somewhat rare. And
it is totally rare. And I know companies that are dealing with the opposite issue. And we get asked about that.
I'm sure.
So you had mentioned quickly some of the delivering joy aspects that you do for the customer, the handwritten notes, the creativity kits. How do you scale handwritten notes?
Yeah, we get this question a lot. I must get this once a week.
Okay.
It's a great question, right? I mean, you're talking about, we've grown to, over 9 figures in revenue in 3 or 4 years. So that's a lot of orders. That's a lot of boxes going out. Honestly, there's no other way to put it, and it's going to sound, it's not, I don't know. I'll say it and you can tell me how it sounds. We just make it a priority. It's something that our ops team works closely and our customer experience team works closely with the fulfillment team to say, this is just something that happens. The box comes in, the automation helps, right? And everyone's working together, humans and machines, and pulling that stuff together, putting it in the box, and it's just something else that happens at the final piece when they stamp that box.
My wrist gets tired just thinking about writing all of those notes, and also the fact that I've forgotten how to write because I type almost everything.
Yeah.
But interesting, and I imagine that generates a lot of social conversation for you.
Yeah, and our employees in the fulfillment center are so great. Like, they'll customize notes sometimes. They'll say, oh, notice that, you have diapers in for the first time. Congrats. Like, even little things like that. It's just a personal touch. How we scale in the future, who knows? Hopefully we'll be able to do that, but it's part of our DNA, so we make it a priority.
I seem to recall literally in the 60s or 70s, Fruit of the Loom featured their underwear inspectors, and they literally had inspected by, number 48, and that would arrive in your tighty-whitey briefs. So anyway, but what's old is new again, but these are highly personalized. All right, so as we wrap up, because I did promise that this would be the last segment, what do you think has been sort of the biggest and maybe even the toughest lesson learned in your first year at Boxed?
Man, that's a good and a hard question. I would say it's an ongoing lesson, first off, so I think I'm still learning a lot. I would think one of them is, I don't know if it's as much a lesson, Drew, as more of an appreciation. So, I'll tweak it a little bit. I think I always appreciated and had envy around what startups were doing, from the most successful ones, big ones, Facebook not even a startup anymore, to the smaller ones. I don't think I truly appreciated the level of effort and work required. And let me preface that by saying that's not to say you don't work hard in the agency. You don't work hard in corporation. Absolutely. Everyone does. Mostly everyone does. I did. But it's a different kind of effort, because meaning everyone's rallying around the one unified cause to make this thing hum, make this thing be better than the day before, and hopefully get to a point where we can all look back and say, wow, we did that. And, you'll constantly evolve and grow and learn and fail. And I think that unified approach towards building a business and having everyone's fingerprint in it, everyone feeling like they're vested in the success of this company, I've never seen that before. But what also happens on the flip side is it makes you more accountable. Like, I've never been more accountable for myself and what I do and how I put in, because the level of effort from the intern all the way to the CEO is at a level I've never seen before. Everyone is truly vested in this company and cares, and it makes your game that much better, but puts more pressure on yourself as well.
That's an amazing situation to be in, and a wonderful one. I want to just, one point we talked about, is there an offer that we can share, any kind of discount coupon that we can share with the listeners?
Yeah, so actually it's 15% off your first order for all new customers. Anyone going to box.com or download the app, you get 50% off right at the top. And normally we are pretty good with emails right after you sign up and do your first order. We'll probably likely send you another promo code or another offer, and maybe Drew will work together on doing maybe a special custom order just for your listeners as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to attempt to summarize. Obviously, we've been talking for quite a while, but there's a few things that I think every business could really benefit from. Imagine if you could define your business in 2 words, like delivering joy, and what that would mean to everything that you do. You would want to hire people that were committed to delivering joy. So you don't hire any Eeyores for your company if you're trying to deliver joy. If you think about those 2 words and you say, okay, what does that customer experience mean to me and my business? It leads to the kinds of creative solutions, because think about delivering joy, there's both this sort of physical and rational delivering, but then there's this highly emotional thing. And how many brands, when you define your business in 2 words, can get both irrational and emotional right in there, and define a vision for your company. We heard over and over again the power of that vision in purpose. And I think that's probably a terrific place to wrap up this episode, Jackson. So thank you so much for being on Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Thank you, Drew. And I would like to say I only swore twice, so I got to do a minimum.
Finally, if you've enjoyed this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast channel. It could be iTunes, Overcast, you name it. And feel free to write a review while you're there, or better yet, share it with a deserving friend. Until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.